Hi everyone, welcome to another video. I'm Tracee Garner. Today we're going to talk about how to join different memberships and ensuring that you get the most from them. Today I wanted to take a little bit of break from the writing and I wanted you to start thinking about ways that you can join some supportive groups that will help you ensure that you are learning, that you are receiving and making the most of your member benefits, and just to ensure there's probably over 1,000, hundreds of thousands of organizations that you can choose, but those memberships cost money. And when you are just starting out, sometimes a membership with a certain organization can really make a difference in the content that they give to you and that they provide. And so you want to ensure that whatever you decide to join, that you get the most bang for your buck, that you feel welcome, and also that you are receiving information and instruction and member benefits that are relevant to where you are in your writing. When you first start out, sometimes it is so important to have a support network, to have a group, and to have a knowledgeable advocate and a good base of people that not only can support new writers and aspiring writers and those who are not published, but also can be a great advocate when writers sometimes are being taken advantage of in their craft. For those who are published, can really have even a team of lawyers or at least a couple of law experts, copyright law and infringement policy experts that also go the distance and advocate for you if something comes up that it attacks writers and makes it seem like they're not getting a fair shake. So I wanted to go over 9 different things that I have, some tips that I have for you to think about as you think about the writing and as you think about the organization that you want to join. The first thing, not part of the 9 tips, but the first thing you need to ask and answer for yourself is, where am I right now? Am I published? Am I almost about to be published? Am I querying agents and editors to see if they are interested in my work? One of the things that happens to some writers is as they get ahead of themselves and get into a groove of querying, somebody actually asks for their work. And all of a sudden you're kind of like, I don't know what to do now. I have somebody interested in my work. I'm going to send it to them as is. And then you may have a bit of a panic and be unprepared as you make the next steps to send your work to them. And then what if they offer you a contract? So now you're in this bind where you don't quite know where to go. Where is the best information? And being a part of a membership writing organization would have really helped outline the steps and outline things for you. So the first thing that I always look at, this is not really in any order. These are just things that I came up with that are all very important. But as you think about them, you'll certainly need to prioritize them. Maybe you only need 5 things to make you want to join the membership. Maybe you need all 9. The first one I'm going to mention isn't to me as big a deal, but it is becoming more increasingly important because you want your organization to be visible. And if they're not visible, if you don't see them on the internet and on social media, then what kind of organization is that? And what presence do they really have if nobody knows about them? So do they have a social media presence? Do they post things that are encouraging? Do they share memes? And not only do they share things online, that would also mean that they have a group of volunteers and they have a dedicated communications person. Even if that person is a volunteer, they're still able to put out content. Maybe you can be the volunteer later on as you grow in your own knowledge and become more popular and understand the social media. But A lot of organizations are built on volunteers, but a lot of the volunteers are very knowledgeable in what they're doing for their own career and their own work and may have jobs in the sector that they're volunteering for. So that is really important that they have a social media presence, that you're able to find at minimum a website. But writers mostly are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and then Pinterest, Tumblr. Some of the other things are kind of secondary, but do they at least have, maybe 3 to 4 places that they regularly post and that the membership can find them and engage and take part? The next thing is that do they have classes and workshops? If they're not offering anything, classes and workshops, and now in COVID-19 world, which I don't want to talk about too much, but webinars, do they have a good group of people who know how to put on webinars, who know how to even just record the information and have it available to you at some point in time that you can log in and have a password and be able to access that material? Do they have a vast array and an assortment of information and articles and things that they share? And do they regularly post that for you to view as part of your membership? Not always as some extra fee for service, but just do they have some free content in these classes, workshops, and webinars, and even teleconferences? Really doesn't matter. It's the vehicle. It just is, do they have that available? And have they had a roster of speakers to come and to talk and deliver content to you? That is very important because you want to be able to go get that agent or to get that editor asking for your work. They may have a list of 10 things to look out for before sending your work to an editor and agent. They may have what to say. They may have a sample contract on their line in their resources page to instruct you on what to look out for and any red flags that you may need to be aware of. The next thing is, do they have a newsletter? A newsletter is sometimes obsolete for some. It just depends on the organization and the people that are doing the content and rendering the content. If they're a organization that is all about aspiring writers, they may have like a writer's corner. Even if they put out the newsletter just quarterly or every other month, which is 6 issues a year, or quarterly, 4 times a year, really doesn't matter as long as they're putting out something. And I actually like some people that put out something every other month and even quarterly because they really probably have taken a lot more time to cultivate the content over those several months that they were not producing a newsletter. There is nothing worse than a newsletter that is just full of different information that has no real relevance to you, and that's kind of the same old thing. So if the newsletter comes out a little bit more spaced apart, then sometimes the information and the content will be more robust for you to enjoy and for you to really have something to bookmark and to save and to download as a PDF, which is another thing that I personally really like is having the ability to download something as a PDF and not really doing that whole flip thing where you don't actually have access to it. You just go to the link and are able to flip to it every now and then. I'm still a printing type of writer. I print out things, I highlight them, I write on the page, especially if it's really good information that I want to refer back to. And so I sometimes curate all these articles and things that I keep. And if you're not really able to have the newsletter for any length of time, or you have to be on the internet to access it, that can be kind of annoying. You don't really feel like you have the information. You feel like it's just somewhere out there on the internet. So I do know some outfits and some membership organizations where you can only access it online. You can't download it. And I think that's kind of sad. I think writing groups are one of the most generous groups. At the same time, I suppose that people want to protect their content. And so you have to be careful with plagiarism, run amok, and with plagiarism and other things that occur. But if it's really good information that you want to share, you should just want to give it freely. And it's not like it's really free. I mean, you did pay a membership in order to receive it. That should be part of something that you get as a benefit. They have a list of speakers. Sometimes you may be planning your own things. You may be wanting to talk to a certain person in the business. I think that memberships should have a good list of speakers that speak on regular topics, even people that can sometimes be mentors for you to contact and ask a question when you have one or when it comes to you, or maybe the speaker lists an FAQ and helps answer those FAQs whenever they come about so that everybody can go and look. And also, are those speakers part of the actual membership? Are all these people just people they think are great people? You want speakers and people who are bestsellers and people who give writing instruction to be actually joining the memberships too, or else what is the value that the membership and the organization really has? Hopefully, many people in the organization are also go-to speakers that your membership organization looks to and asks to regularly deliver content. With that said, sometimes I've seen organizations where they rely too much on one person, or that one person has their own retreat or their own writing package, and the speaker is allowed to kind of hold the membership hostage in order to sell and promote their work to a captive audience. That can be kind of annoying. So if you see someone, I knew someone like that who was able to get kind of a moratorium on the local library that I often frequent. They were always having a workshop, always doing a free session. 30 people would come, and then it was an opportunity for them to sell to that captive audience, hoping that they would buy. So it was such major free advertisement, and there's nothing wrong with that, but there is a point where it can become overkill, and the person really gets too much of a hold on the organization and is always selling to the members. And then sometimes the fact that you're allowing them to present so often and to advertise in the newsletter or talk about their retreat or their writing package that they have coming up, that's several thousands of dollars, sometimes that can be a turnoff. And we have to really, I think the people in leadership have to really look at who has what, and place some limits on their ability. Not that they shouldn't ever let them, but maybe they rotate. Maybe the person gets 3 promotions a year as a super member, super sponsor of some higher level. And at that point, then they have paid, they're supporting the whole organization, and they're allowed to do that. But at the same time, you still should have limits. And people should not be able to just use an organization to help them fill their coffers and promote all of their own branded stuff. Do they have an annual conference or a retreat, or even a monthly meeting or annual event where they really ramp up? It's big, it's huge. Now a lot of events are going to be online due to the current status of our world that we're living in right now, a lot of quarantine. And it's really interesting to see who is able to adapt and have an online retreat and who is like, forget it, we can only do live events, you can only find a venue, have it, and everybody come. They haven't quite learned how to transition to an online platform using Zoom, which is very easy and has a lot of tutorials to use. And I haven't really seen too many people not be able to adapt to that. At the same time, people are canceling a lot of things, and it is frustrating if you don't have that kind of thing you were looking forward to. And everybody has to make adjustments. I'm not saying that. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying that does the organization have a way to still offer good content, to still have an annual event? Maybe all the authors come on and record their segments, and then they just list the segments online in a kind of order, maybe grouping them under different subjects such as craft and marketing promotion and getting a contract or self-publishing, things like that. So do they have an annual conference or a retreat that you're going to come to? And then are you able to get discounts? You have member discounts. Certainly as a member, you don't want to pay full price. You already paid whatever it was, $50 to $100 for the annual membership. Surely that means you can have at least a 10 to 20% discount on the admission price to go to the event. And that's very important. And it also makes people feel that they have added value by being a member, and you want to be able to offer them some incentives for their membership. Do they offer any scholarships? Not only is it important that you get a discount on your membership because you are a member, a paid member, an annual member, but are they offering some kind of reduced or even free admission price for people who are less fortunate, people who fall on hard times, writers who haven't quite made it yet, but still desire to attend an event? They have childcare. I have actually applied for a scholarship for one of the largest romance industry conferences in the US, and I'm able to alleviate some cost, usually even by being a speaker or just applying for the scholarship early and on time and ensuring that you have all the supporting documentation that you need and that they are requiring of you. It is really important that they support their own writers who have hardships, who have extra purchases that they have to make, who sometimes need support people to accompany them to their conference. Sometimes the prices are very high. And when you add in hotel and ground or air accommodations, those add up the cost, especially if it's far away. I am only sometimes able to travel to conferences that are on the East Coast that can be gotten to by bus or train. And so those things really cut down on the cost. But then I have other support people that I need to maybe accompany me and to assist me. And those are added costs for me to absorb because I'm the one who wants to go to the event and to participate. So don't think about scholarships as a handout. Think of them as a tool and something that the organization is able to offer. And a lot of times people either pay extra or they have money to donate to certain funds. And then some things are left by the legacy of a person who may be passed on. And so you are actually on the receiving end of all the work and the effort that they dedicated to an organization. And it's a way, a really awesome way to remember that person is to have a scholarship in their name and ensure that other people can participate. So look at those in a different way and go ahead and apply. The next thing, as I mentioned in the beginning, is that you're going to need an organization to go to bat for you against some of the really big people, the big industries that sell our books and that put out stuff for us to use, and that also sometimes honestly hammer us as far as divvying up our pie of earnings and royalties. This is a really big deal. If is your organization able to quickly and succinctly put out a message that some things, some practices against writers are just unacceptable, that you can't nickel and dime someone trying to make an honest living out of their craft, providing entertainment. What are industries and what are booksellers without people writing books? And then to cut into the earnings that people make where they're making pennies is really unfair. We have produced the product that you are selling, and you cut the pie in so many ways that we don't have enough to do what we want to do and what we need to do in order to make an honest living. So is your organization able to have on retain a lawyer, or even just have in their resources and their membership a lawyer or a group of lawyers, or at least people that know copyright law to the letter, and ensure that you can Call them, talk to them. They can send out messaging in a hurry. They don't have to take a week and a month to get something together. They have that stuff ready to go. One of the things I've gotten from some of the memberships is just a sample cease and desist letter. This is when there's piracy on your work or copyright infringement. Somebody has posted your book and is making the profit from it, and you do not have any say. That is copyright infringement. And you want to be able to send your own letters to the people on those sites and ask them to take it down immediately. And there is language in the letter that you should use, and those have been helpful. There are a number of other sample things, sample contracts, things that you can find, and things that a lawyer has prepared for the organization, and to ensure that writers can be covered, that we can do some of this on our own. We can't expect the organization to step in on everything on our behalf, on every topic, every subject. However, they can arm us with the tools and the resource library to ensure that we have access to the things that we can say and write and send via email on our own as a way to make progress and to create change. Industry clout and pull, and being a really well respected organization is very important today with all of the electronic and digital means of publishing our work. Something that is a little bit intangible is to ensure that your organization seems receptive. I've been in a lot of groups where sometimes I'm in the minority, obviously. This is the case among many groups. Sometimes a lot of people don't join groups for that very reason. They may have been to a meeting or two, and they may have seen that this group really isn't for me, it's not welcoming, it's not receptive. But at the same time, while you may find that, is there a way in? Do they seem receptive to ideas about increasing the number of people that look like you and that are of your makeup and your descent? And you'll have to, push some buttons and see and speak up and ask. And sometimes you won't get the response that you want, which is a nice way of saying it, but you'll also know whether or not that group is for you, whether or not this is something you want to challenge and try to start to create change. A lot of more diversity initiatives, diversity, equity, inclusion is the main words of today's landscape for groups and really everywhere, for work, for personal things, for groups, for organizations all over the country in the United States. And as such, people are seeing how they have conducted themselves, and you are able to see if people are truly apologetic for that and willing to change, or if they want to keep going as the status has been going along all of these years. Those are personal issues that you have to decide if you want to tackle that. And I don't blame anyone, because as an advocate for my day job, when I would go to some of these groups and be a member, I did not personally have enough bandwidth to also stir up and try to change things that I was doing for my personal enjoyment. My writing has always been for my personal enjoyment. Yes, I treat it as a business. Yes, it is important to me, but I did not care to advocate at home and at work, if you will, on the front lines of my craft and what I enjoyed and something that brought me joy, and to realize that racism and adversity existed in the organizations that I was a part of was just too much. And while, yes, of course, I was a part of helping to make changes, it was exhausting and it was something that I rather would have not have done. The alternative to that is to leave those groups and to continue to look for and find groups that are kind of who you want to be with, who represents you, and who is welcoming to you. So I give people a pass because I understand the double need, the need for on an almost double advocacy effort to advocate on things that are supposed to be happy and fulfilling, and then advocate again at work and in a work setting for your clients and people that are disparate and disproportioned and marginalized groups and voices. So you have to make a conscious decision what you want to do and how you participate. And I don't fault anyone who decides that is not the battle that they want to choose. That's what they decided. You live with it and you just deal with it as best you can. The next thing is, do they have protocols? The organizations really woke up in the Me Too era, and some of them realized that they didn't have policies, especially for volunteers and people that were higher up, people in the paid position versus volunteers, and just really the relationships among volunteers in general. People's in really a reactive effort instead of a proactive effort, started having to look around, look at their bylaws, look at what they have on the documents, and say, we don't have the proper coverage for ourselves. We don't have the proper coverage for our volunteers, and we need to institute a policy. It's going to take a group effort, but we need to institute a policy of sexual harassment, of discrimination, of harassment, of how you remove people from boards or how you invite them on, preventing, a good old boy network of mentality where other people get promoted, other people move ahead of someone who is equally qualified, but the rumor mill has devastating information about them that may be erroneous and untrue? And how are you going to prevent these things from happening? How do you have the fair policies, the fair voting, and the bylaws, and the confidentiality policies, and even accessibility? Accessibility has been such a major issue. People having things at private venues that sometimes are inaccessible to a person like me. And you have to ensure that if you had a policy that said everything would be held in a place where we are ADA compliant, you wouldn't have the lawsuits and you wouldn't have the things that you have to confront if you had these policies in line in the first place. So things like bylaws and things that talk about what the organization holds dear and what they value should all be written out in a statement on their website somewhere. It should be prominent, it should be there, it should be easily accessible, and anyone should be able to read it. It is something that I encourage people to read before they actually decide to put their money down, as things could go south and things blow up in your face, and all of a sudden you're a member of something that doesn't conduct themselves in a good way, in a way that is fair and balanced and has the proper checks for it. Finally, you should just decide, why are you joining an organization, and list those things that are going to be most important. A few of the things that are most important to me is that the organization is welcoming. The organization has some way for me to promote myself as an author and as a person who is publishing multiple books each year, and someone who also wants to get the word out about their craft and their writing and all of the work that you've done to create a book and to be able to sell it to as many people as possible. So that's one thing. The second thing is that the webinars and the sometimes insider information and the discount on the programs and offerings that they have are really important to me, and the access, and then also just being a part of a larger group that is encouraging. We have the same writer woes. We can sometimes share and commiserate with those. And the other thing I really like that has been really beneficial is a listserv, some kind of regular group where people post things, they ask questions. And also what I have found is I found a lot of opportunity in the listserv. Somebody has a blog that they're opening it up and they're inviting other writers to come on and do a blog post. They have a podcast or a blog talk radio show, or even One opportunity that I found is when an author had to cancel their appearance at a local writers conference. They had a conflict or a family emergency. I replied right away and said, I can do it. And it was one of the best experiences that I, ever had, simply because they had to back out at the last minute. They sent a frantic message on listserv, and really whoever responded first or whoever was a great fit and had the time and could come to the event was able to get that. And the person also knew you because you were a fellow member, could look up and see your information. And that brings about another point, that all of your websites for your writing should be listed on the membership roster. If somebody wanted to find you and wanted to look you up, that member roster on their platform and on their website is another way to have access to people. So ensure that your website is up to date and that you have listed it. And when I recently updated my website to use my name instead of a handle that I just used, TEEGARNER versus Tracee Garner, I had to make sure that I went around to all my membership sites and updated those as I needed to ensure that people could reach me, could find me if they had a question, or could invite me to events, which has been really a lot of the ways that I've been able to be invited to events. And that's by just being in the right place and ensuring my information was up to date. Finally, with the cost of memberships, it is really hard to have more than one or two or three organizations that you are involved in for a year at a time. What I do is I usually have maybe two memberships that I won't ever let lapse, that I'll always be a part of, and those are mostly romance organizations. And then there are some larger organizations that aren't romance focused that I will be a part of, such as the Authors Guild, which has fiction and nonfiction and all kinds of different writers, or Northern Virginia Writers, which isn't necessarily focused on romance, but is in my area and something that I want to keep up with, or the Maryland Writers. So you should think about joining something for a year, seeing how you like it, seeing if you're able to get the most benefit out of it. And then if you don't like it or if it's not the right fit, let that membership lapse when it's time for renewal and join something else. This is the best way that I found to really see where you like, where you fit, and where you're going to get the most benefit. So I realize it's an expense, it's an added expense. You can spend thousands of dollars every year in 5 different organizations, or you can pick 1 to 2 that really are in your industry, are a part of who and what you write about, and that meet those other criteria that I listed throughout this video. And then you can just pick and choose one here and there, and even let your membership lapse and join them again the next year and just see how it goes. But remember that you also have to participate. It's not just on the membership organization to be a part of and to have that whatever title you have, or to be able to list their graphic and their logo on your website that you are a member of, but it's also about what can you contribute, what can you give to the organization, how can you make an impact, and are they really having benefits for you and for where you are right now. There are some organizations that I believe people can actually make so much of their career that sometimes the organization may be no longer relevant to them. The organization may be full of only aspiring writers. And if you're about to become published, that's still important. But at the same time, you're moving to the next level. And so you want to make sure the organization matches your current career station, where you are as far as writing and where you also want to be. If you look around and you're published and everybody has 1 or 2 books out and doesn't seem like there's any growth, then you want to make sure you find something that is going to get you to the next level. And it's okay. It's okay to move on from those. They were there for a season, for your aspiring writer season. And now that you're going to be published, you don't want to ever stop learning the craft, learning what it takes to get a book deal and to survive in this industry. However, you want to make sure that you can look up and see people ahead of you in order to have influence, them influencing you, and you learning and growing by being and hanging out with them. Concludes this session, this video for today. I will link a couple of websites where you can find a list of a lot of writer organizations. And in my blog post today, I'll be listing the organizations that I am a member of. I'm a member of about 4 or 5, and I will list those in the blog. Don't forget to always check the blog. The blog accompanies this video and kind of spells out things that I didn't say or didn't want to spend extra time saying here. I wanted to get to, and I wanted to share with you today. So don't forget to go to TraceeGarner.com and you'll see blog posts going with each of the episodes today. Hope you've had a great time. Hope you've learned something about going to the next level and harnessing the power of memberships and writing organizations to help you, and that you have a great day. Thanks. Bye.